Okie doke. So the next project, number 3, this will be a culmination project of where we are so far in the semester. So far we have done some experimenting and building from sketches and extruding directly, as well as using sketches and revolving those to make rounded objects. So far we've messed with more of rectangular vertical objects, cutting into those, and similarly with taking profiles and revolving them to make round objects. So with that somewhat in mind, the next project is you're gonna be making a phone stand or whatever you have, whatever your device or whatever. If you have a, if it's a watch or if basically something that a personal item you would like to make a stand for. I just go with default phone stand because a lot of people have phones, cell phones, all that. Easy thing to work with, basic form to model, and then build something around that. So with that in mind, we'll be going over the example or some examples, of course, in class. And you are to design whatever you would like. As far as dimensions and things like that, there are no dimensions listed because it's based around whatever you have. So we'll continue to work on this through next week, but we'll see how it goes. If people are progressing quickly enough or however it goes for everybody, we might speed it along a little bit more, but depends on how everybody's going along. And that's perfectly fine. So this will be largely combining what we've been working with so far. Accurate measuring. Now, one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the semester is getting your hands on some sort of a ruler, ideally these ones that have both metric and imperial on it. Really, just because metric is the default measurement, one for Fusion, but also it's a default measuring system for most of your slicer programs and therefore also your 3D printers. So if you wanted to 3D print something, it's honestly best and it's just a lot easier to model in metric. The other thing which I recommended is a set of digital calipers. Now these are metal ones, but the ones I'd recommended were plastic and like $10. You do not have to have these. They're just helpful. But as I said, this is going to be built around a physical model of a phone. So you're going to first model a stand-in for your phone or whatever other device you're working with. Now, this does not have to be hyper detailed. If it's something that has like a bunch of buttons or anything like that, I don't expect you to put every button or anything like that in there, but you need a block reference so that way you have a reference model to then work on your phone stand around so that it actually fits and doesn't interfere with like any buttons or anything like that. As it says on here, we are going to go over importing models. Now, depending on what it is, I do not expect you, like I said, to work completely on modeling a device from scratch. If it's simple enough, there we are. But I'm going to show you how to actually download and then or find free models to then put into Fusion as stand-ins. Obviously, we're working with sketches, extruding, cutting, creating sketches on faces. So like we said before, or we talked briefly before about on sketching and such, you don't only always have to sketch directly on a construction plane. You can actually sketch on top of surfaces and such. That's how you build more complex forms. Basically, it's stacking boxes and such. Obviously, the revolve tool we just worked with. We're also going to be talking about the combine tool, which we've all gotten a little bit of when we're extruding through a form or something where it either cuts, combines, joins, or intersects, which we haven't really actually worked with yet. New components we've made, separating out like the vessel and the dish. We've also played with the appearance tools. If possible, we'll print these, same as before, totally up to you. Requirements for this assignment, though. You must model your relevant phone or whatever item you're working with. If you're working with like a phone and if you just have a bare phone, you can model just the bare phone. If you have something that's already in a case and it stays in the case, then you need to model the case. You don't have to model the phone inside of that. You need to model the thing that it's actually the actual thing you're interacting with. That way you have an accurate model to build outward from. Your design should be, as it has in quotations, functional, meaning, well, a stand is only as functional as you plopping a thing on top of it. So it's not like we're talking about like some mechanical whatever have you. But that also does mean the measurement should be accurate, meaning your phone actually should fit in, but not so much like, yeah, my phone totally fits inside this giant cup. Actually, it doesn't, luckily, because otherwise I would have just dunked my phone into a cup of water. But also make sure that your references aren't full of water. It must actually fit inside the cradle or whatever you're working with, as well as if you're planning on incorporating like a power cord or a charging station or something like that, you should take measurements off of that so that way it measures. But as far as operations it should include, or it needs to include, some sort of extrude or cut feature. Pretty basic on that. Some sort of combine feature, which is just, we've already been working with that also. Should have it more than a single component, unless that component is sufficiently complex. And we'll talk about what sufficiently complex actually means, because that's a pretty subjective term. And then appearances applied are up to you. Yeah, apply an appearance. Whatever you'd like, go for it. You may certainly add other features into your design, and we can discuss how to do that if you like. Things like, adding like legs or feet or something like that for an upright stand, maybe recesses, like I said, for a charging station or cable. Maybe this is more of like a desktop thing, and it has a larger port for like pens or a stylus or something like that. Like I said, it can also, it doesn't have to be a phone. Maybe you've got a tablet or something and you like working on that. It could be a stand for the tablet or so. It'd be a larger, but that's fine. Doesn't matter. As before, we'll review your project, your model in class, and assist as needed and as you like. Right now, I'm looking at. Oh, I put this as March 8th. I meant to give us more time for that. I meant that to be the 15th. I'll change that. And oops, I'm in a there. So I'll adjust that. My mistake. All right, so we'll be modeling a phone stand. So first things first, I'll show you the example I did. Now, I built this phone case based around my phone. Like I said, you don't have to model both a phone and its case. I'll change views. I was just playing around, made like the hollow screen, all of that stuff. Super fun time. But yes, I modeled the phone case, but if you were just working with like a bare phone or something like that, and you need at least like a starting reference, you can get those for free. So I want to show everybody how to do just that. We've briefly talked about a couple other websites and such. One is called Thingiverse. One is My Mini Factory. My Mini Factory, it's a really good website, but as you can see, they are more predominantly for sculpted forms and things like exactly that, like making miniatures and tabletop gaming and things like that. But doesn't mean that there's not other cool files there. Really nice files. Often enough, I use Thingiverse. You can see that there's a whole slew of stuff, but you can also see that, yeah, I put in a search for phone stand and a toy revolver came up. So the search engine is not great on Thingiverse. And then apparently phone stand also includes a bathroom stand. Hey, cool. Thing for swabs and discs. Nice. So it's a really good place that also, either of them, I actually did a phone search for phone stand on My Mini Factory. Didn't really come up with much other than some really basic ones. So if nothing else, this is also a great place to look for ideas if you're unsure of, I don't really know what I might want to do. Look around. Could even be something like I said, scale is doesn't really matter. I would like it to be slightly larger, but here's an example of someone modeled little keychain phone stands. It's like these little adorable dragons and kitty cats and stuff. So scale is relative. Let me back up, see if it didn't completely lose where I was. But yeah, we'll look at different models. But I did do a search for, I have was XSX, whatever. So did a search for that. Yes, there's a whole bunch of crapola. There's some really cool things. There's some really nice, like, different gaming controllers. There's some little, and again, you'll get ideas for different stands. But I was looking for, like, just literally the phone. So went through a couple of pages and found, there we are. There's one. Somebody already pre-modeled the phone itself. It's a rounded rectangle. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Anyhow, download this. Yes, there's always ads and all kinds of crapola. Ooh, save the file. Great. And open up my downloads. Where'd you go? Oops. There we are. Now, it does do it as a zip file, so you just have to unpack the zip. I actually did a couple different ones. And go to Files, and there we are. Now, this opens as a 3D object. Now, just like we were talking about before, through just a 3D viewer, you can see super duper. Now, when we put something back into Fusion, we did so only as already a Fusion file, not as an STL. So how do we do that? Well, go back to Fusion. And if I want to, and I'll just start a new example. If I want to import something like that, you would think, well, I'll go to, oh, not save. You would think I'll go to File and Upload and such. Unfortunately, yes, you can do that, but for whatever reason, that tends to, like, scramble the scale of the object. I don't understand why. So what you should do is, under the Insert tab, just like when you inserted a canvas image as a reference, you're going to go to Insert Mesh. Now, a mesh, as it says for the pop-up, it inserts a selected object file or STL file into the design. So we'll select there, go back to the model, and that'll load it in. Unit type, yep, still 100 millimeters. You can make some adjustments now as far as orientation. I'll do the center. I'll snap that to the center later because I can't see what I'm doing. All right, we'll just leave it there for now. Okay, great. All right, so another thing is, obviously, that looks really screwy. That doesn't look like what we've been working with. This is a mesh, is not a standard solid object. You can see from the model that I built before, as well as any of your projects so far, they've looked more like this. A mesh is made up of a different set of mathematical points, not really relevant for what we're doing right now. More of just know that it's differenty, and also you can manipulate it, but for what we're doing, you cannot alter this file, this object, like your other stuff. And if you open the hierarchy tree and see the bodies, you'll see it's a completely different symbol. It's a mesh body, and I'll just label that as phone. However, it at least gives you a reference point that you can then model on top of. Now, if your phone is a bare phone or something, I do expect you to model that yourself. This is an excellent reference, and if you duplicate it, awesome. More power to you. However, what I did for this one, and I'll expand this, I did place that model inside of this. So I used a model phone as a stand-in to get some references, and then I created a case around that. So as I said, model the relevant object. So if yours is just a phone, then I expect you to model it yourself. And I'll just put up the, like, wireframe. You can see that's inside of the phone case that I built. And I will go through how I modeled that kind of stuff. But for now, I want to show you what I built around that. What I built on top of this, as I actually went through a couple iterations, I was playing with, I was going to make like some kind of like phone stand, like almost like, I don't know, I guess it started turning into like an office chair thing. Could be fun. I used the circle pattern to create one and then make multiples around around a circle, around a center axis. But after playing with that, I really didn't much care for that design. Then I created a more of like sleeve base that kind of looks more of like a French fry container, I guess. But that would allow the phone to then slip down into that, and I was going to model something built on top of that. Well, I did modify that and built into more of a amplifier stand, whereas, and as you saw, let's see here, there was a bunch of examples here of just basic like phone stands. Let's see, I saw one, no idea where it went, kind of irrelevant. Yeah, if I'm looking for the example, of course I'm not going to see it now. Anyway, basically just an amplifier bell that would allow its speaker to be louder. That's all. However, I created this, and I will activate that component, and I'll go through creation for this. So I built up basic sketches. Stop. Go back through the, rather than hitting play. So I built up some basic sketches, was playing with just kind of what I might want it to look like. Of course, it's hiding all the sketches now. There we are. I did some construction lines and such just to kind of give myself how I kind of sort of might hope that it looks. Now, obviously, this double curve is not going to be functional for using the revolve tool, but it allowed me to kind of play around with the design. I did create a kind of splitting the difference here. I created this simple profile here. I revolved that to make a little bell housing. I took the sketch from the first one I did, that first phone sleeve, recreated that one, and then I needed to extend that downward so I get a little bit closer. I did this basically exactly like I did this sleeve, basically exactly like we created your badges, doing a positive extrusion for the upper side and then a negative extrusion for the bottom. Played around making some more elements. I made just a little cylinder to connect the two. However, at the moment, that cylinder is solid and the base of that design is solid. So it's like, great. Well, how do I hollow that all out? Where is it showing? Made some features. Ah, there we are. So what I did in here is, if I wanted to hollow this all out, what I did is, and I'm going to explain how to use this. So far in the inspection tools, we've just been using the measure tool. Well, what if I want to see like a solid thing and I want to make like some internal space or just play around with that? Basically, with this, I wanted to cut a tube through that, or wanted to cut a space through this bell housing is already hollow, but the bottom of this phone case is solid. So what I did is I created a analysis, which allows you to take like literal just cross sections. I could just slice the thing in half and it let me see what it was. Under inspect, you go to section analysis. Now I already made one of these, so I'll just show what this does. What this does is brings up, and you can alter, I'll edit this, you can alter the depth. It starts at the origin plane, and I am not altering the model at all right now. This is not an alteration of the model I've done so far at all. This is just a measuring tool. This exists outside of the model. So you can see, though, it has sliced everything in half, right down, so I see a cross section. Really neat tool. And you can push and pull as you like. So this is excellent for being able to just see what is inside of a model. However, what's really great about it, and I'll just set that back to 0, is now with that, I can hit OK, and it's going to leave it as is. If I look at my hierarchy tree under analysis, I can hide that, and it just snaps back. So it's just a way of seeing what you're doing. But from that, I was able to leave it, oops, wrong button, leave it like it is. And I was able to draw a sketch just inside of there. And then what I did is I just extruded that. It's probably still hiding parts of this. Let's see here. There we are. So I extruded that. It's not showing it clearly because of something else. And then I just made some rounds and such. All right. Yeah, it's completely hiding the body that I made. That's because I used a tool part. But anyway, like I said, I'll do a walkthrough of this. Then I use the combine tool. And actually, I don't know why it's not showing it. There we are. So I extruded this as actually a rectangle in either direction. So it just went straight out. And then I added a very large fillet to try to make it as round as I could. Now, yes, there are other ways I could have done this, but we haven't gotten to those tools yet. So I just wanted to explain how I would do this through what we've learned so far. I used up in the center the combine tool, and that is the tool itself that normally we've been using with like the extrude tool and such. So I created that and made this hollow section inside, and this just some more stuff. I was just rounding out that section there and all that. But anyway, just playing around with the feature. But like I said, right now, this is just showing the cross section. I don't know why it's not showing the actual full model yet. But if I hide the section analysis, now you can see that hollow inside. Again, I'm not sure why it's not showing it. Strange. I'm not entirely sure why it's not doing that. Anyway, we'll play around with it. I'll show you a few more examples. But then I added like a little back here and such. And I should have modeled this in a different direction, but it's intended to set up more like that. So that's a way of doing stuff. But I'll show you just for an example how you might go about modeling something. So this example is in the folder. You're welcome to play with it. Have at you. Somebody's already having at. So this is where I started, just making a fresh one here. So this is the model I imported of my phone. I'm going to create a quick case around this. Now, one thing, though, is I like working right from the center. And since this display is showing me the way it is, I want to go with a wireframe so I can actually see what's in there. All right. So first, I want to move this thing. So I select that. I select the model. I press M for move. And I'm just going to move this down to the center. And I'm just moving this as close as I think I can. Probably not where it needs to be. And with the way that this gets modeled, it really throws things out. So it's honestly, it's kind of difficult to really see what I'm doing. So maybe instead what I'll do, so I'll cancel the move and I'll start modeling on top of this and then move the stuff afterwards once I have a solid a solid based around how we have been modeling, and then it gives me some actual reference points. So, okay. So that's the phone. I'm going to start with a couple parts. But first, like we did for the Revolve project, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of components just to get me started. So right now, I'm going to start one as phone case. All right, now that's going to go ahead and activate. Now anything I build will be inside of that component. So start a sketch. I'm working on this plane. And first thing, I want to build a rectangle around this just so I actually have some reference points. So I am going to start this with a 2-point rectangle rather than a center start because I don't know where the hell the center is on this. However, it did line up the model across the origin here. So I'll start that way. I'll start right in the center and move upwards. And I'll line this up as best I can. That looks good. That looks good. All right. Hit escape. Now, if I double click that, now you can see this line does intersect like those buttons and things like that, but at least I have a starting point. I'm going to convert that to a construction line. Now I have an actual reference I can work with. Now I have some actual lines that's going to give me a midpoint when I hover over this, things like that. So that'll really help me out. Okay, so now I'm going to take a measurement off of my actual phone case. So my phone case is showing me that across it's about 80 millimeters wide by, that looks to be about 155 millimeters tall. So that's going to be larger than this. Pardon me. But at least now, when I start with a center rectangle, it will snap. See, this blue dotted line snaps to where the center of the vertical line is. And I should get a snap also. I said I should get a snap. It's not snapping. You jerk. All right, fine. Don't know why I'm not getting a center point on that one also. There we are. There we go. So I had to mouse over the rectangle. And let me just hide the phone case so you actually see what I'm doing here. So I had just mouse over more closely. Okay, there we go. So now I have a center starting point. And I said it was about 150 millimeters tall by 80 wide. So already, obviously, a little bit larger. And it's already also showing me that, yeah, that's not the same size. And so let me double check my sizing on that. It's wider than the phone is itself, but 155 might be a bit too small. Yeah, that might be closer to 160. No problem. Go in here. I don't have to make any alterations to anything. And just double click where it already has the dimension. Change that to 160. Now, slightly larger. Now, why is that not staying centered? That's very strange. You got me. That's definitely odd. I have no idea why. So let's try and move that. So at least we get where it's actually supposed to be, huh? Yeah, that's real problematic. All right, there we are. Huh, don't know why I did that. Anyhow, that gives me a good starting point now. And now, how thick is this? It is about 12 millimeters thick. Cool. Okay, so I'll finish that sketch. Well, first I actually want to round these corners over. And that looks like it's we will just kind of estimate that. Looks, I don't know, 15? We'll try it out. So I'm going to start a fillet here. That is way big. And 15 based off of that. So that would be 7.5, which I was just going off of half of 15. Okay. That looks a little closer. Again, let me unhide the phone model. There we go. Now it's showing me a little more accurately what I'm actually looking at. Okay. So again, I started that first construction rectangle just as a reference point. All right, I'm going to because I want to be able to link all these, I'm going to mouse over the dimension for the first, the dimension for the first fillet. It's called D3. So now when I repeat the fillet, and remember, you can repeat the last command by hitting right click and bringing up your control stuffs. Just going to bring up some regularly used tools, and straight up is the tool you just used. It changes that out every time. Now I come over and keep changing these. I want D3. Remember, that is case sensitive. And it's going to keep linking these. I hate that you have to do these individually, but you do. D3. D3. Hooray! All right. Finish that sketch. And now, oh, geez. I'm going to extrude just that profile. And I want that. Yeah, start playing, sure. Why did it? There we are. What did I say? It was about 15 thick? No. 12, 13. That's close enough. We'll do 12 so it's even. Oh, right, because I have changed my visual style to visual now. All right, there we are. Great. So now I can start playing with this. My phone case actually has chamfers on the edges instead of fillets. So I will make that alteration. Chamfer both of those. We'll see. One? Yeah, we'll go with 1 millimeter chamfer. There we are. Neato. Now, the rest of the stuff isn't necessarily relevant, save for, as I unhide the phone in there, there's definitely, oops. Yeah, when you start to orbit underneath, it starts doing weird things. So there's definitely where the camera is. And there's some buttons on the side. Now, how do I want to go about that? Well, a couple things. For one, my camera, or the phone itself, the model itself, is floating there. I probably want to go ahead and bring that inside of the case model, or vice versa. Whichever way you work, I don't think it really matters much, or meaning like it doesn't really matter if you bring the phone up or the case down. Honestly, it's just going to depend on how you prefer to work. So I'm going to move the phone. So I select the phone, press M for move, and now I'm just going to slide that upwards until it gets about right. Again, it doesn't have to be exact because that's not really the relevant thing. Now, one thing, I actually want to split the difference, and it's currently on the iteration snaps, meaning like how many times or how far it moves each time, is on a full millimeter. And it's looking like really I want that to be right between there. So looking at it numerically, I'm looking at the actual distance. It keeps going between 6 and 7. So I'll type in 6.5, and that popped about where I would like it to be. So there we go. So if you want to add those features, go ahead. You probably should, because there's going to be important depending on what you're modeling. So I'm going to go to the bottom here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sketch, but I'm not going to start on the origin plane. I'm going to start on this phone case itself. I'm going to start a sketch. And when I mouse over the case itself, it might be easier to see if I hide the phone inside. See, I'm not selecting the origin like we ordinarily would. I'm selecting that case. So now my sketch will be on that surface, not on the construction plane. And what I want to do is I just want to quickly model a mock-up for this oval here. So that's going to be like 2 circles and some lines connected. So I'm going to do a center point circle, and I'm going to try to just kind of estimate how big that is. Obviously, I can measure it on the phone case, but I'm just going to measure it based on this. So it looks like 12 is kind of huge, or is it about right? All right, maybe I should actually measure it on the case a little bit just to give myself a bit of reference. All right, yeah, it says it's about 10 millimeters. So just to give myself a little bit more space. All right, I guess so. 10. We'll go with 10. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple of changes here. All right. So right now, see, this is not at all centered on where I'm working. So I want to move this. And just like before, it's going to snap too far by 0.5 millimeter. So I'm just going to do negative, 0.5. Oh, that should have been negative 0.5. That's a lot better. And then I'll also drag it down a bit. Same problem. That should be like 0.5. That's not exact, but for what we're doing, that's pretty close. Okay. Now I do want to make a copy of this circle for another one down here. So I'll use the same move tool. And if you've noticed before, when you press M for move, or you can bring up the utility, but just M makes it easier. When you have something selected, at the bottom of this toolbox, there's a checkbox, create copy. That will do exactly that. Now when I click and drag, it is moving a copy. So I'm going to get it, again, about as close as I can. That looks good. Okay. Now I'm going to just draw a line between these two. I'm going to hide this phone inside because that's getting really confusing. And I'm going to just draw a straight line between there and there. And there and there. Okay. So first thing, let's get some symbols going. I want to use my constraints because right now that is not at all proper, meaning if I zoom way in, that vertical line doesn't match up with that circle very well at all. So I can use my constraints tools. So I can use my horizontal, vertical for that one. This line is already parallel to this first one because the parallel lines with crosshatches shows horizontal or vertical in this case. And then the parallel symbol, the two diagonal lines, the second line is parallel to the first. So we're good. However, I want the tangent line as well. So at least we'll help out actually making these lines connect with those circles. There we go. Oops. I don't want you to do that because that snapped it and shrunk the thing. Nope, nope, nope. How far back are you going to let me? There we go. Depending on where you click on items, it can throw stuff. So click there, and I'm going to click above there. Why the hell is it doing that? I guess I don't actually need to constrain that one there. Should be good. You can, again, you can always over constrain an item. Yeah, see, it's going to keep pulling it. All right, should be good because this one is constrained to vertical and it's parallel to that one. Should be fine. Okay. Press OK. Oops, I should have edited those. 1 second. I meant to trim those little chunks out. What happened there? Oh, it for some reason flipped my whole model. I just want to trim those two semicircles out. Okay. All right. Oops, don't want that way. I want it coming down that way. Okay, now when I go to extrude and I select just that profile, you see now it's extruding from that face. And that little camera bump thing is about, it's only like 2 or 3, it's only like 2 millimeters. Jeez. Oops, not negative because I'm going downward. like 2 millimeters. There we go. Okay. And this actually has a pretty good chamfer to it also. So I'm going to do a chamfer on all of those. And we'll say 1, maybe 2. There we go. So I just wanted that edge to show for that. Great. So now that has the little, it has the little bump out for the camera. Next, what I want to do is just do a couple of quick buttons so I know where those buttons are. So it's hard to see. Let me see if I can, let me change my visual settings here so I can see a little bit better of what the heck I'm doing here. Of course, that hid the thing. So let me unhide the case. Oh my God, this is making everything worse. So I've got a couple of buttons on that side, and I got a couple buttons on that side. And it's zooming way out. Okay. So let me just whip up a couple of buttons here. I want to see the hidden edges. And this is I'm gonna do this. Oh my God, I can't even see what I'm doing with that mesh there. All right, let's see if I pan up a little bit. Maybe I can actually understand what I'm looking at. Okay, so those 2 buttons there, they're just long rectangles, or they're long rectangles with rounded edges, basically just like what I just did. Whew, that is confusing. So let me start with this one. All right, same thing. I'm going to create a sketch, but again, I'm going to create on the surface of that case. I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm just going to kind of estimate on top of that button. That seems about right. Let's make it an even 3, and we'll make the other one an even 18 because it's bigger than the thing. Great. Okay. Double click, and I'm going to move this over a little bit just so it's kind of a little bit better centered there. Cool. Okie dokie. And same. I'm going to put a fillet. Round that out. Let's say 1.5. Okay. Mouse over that radius. It's D17 this time. And just repeat that. D17. Oops. What did I just do? No. D17. What is it doing? Why is it creating a... That's very strange. It's creating a circle on top of this. Great. I'm sure there's a reason why it's doing that. I don't know what it is. All right, so let's get back out of that. Might be that this fillet's a little bit too large, so let's just do 1. What is going on here? It's scrambling what I'm doing. Very strange. All right, anyway, we'll just do these as 1s, and that might be actually faster. Same. Okay. Now I do want to duplicate that on top of the other button. So I'll double click this feature here, bring up the move, click copy, and drop that same thing as I could try to see if that's the right button. Seeing through things obviously creates some interesting problems. Oh, not at all what I wanted to do. There we go. So if you change your perspective a little bit, you at least can get a slightly clearer idea of what you're doing. All right, there we go. Now I can see the buttons that I was working with. All right, that'll work. Okay, finish sketch. And now I could do the same thing. Select both of those, press E for extrude, and we'll do like, I don't know, 2. That's probably fine. hide that phone inside so I can see what I'm looking at. Getting jammed up here. There we are. Oops. Nothing like good old computer lag. Come on, buddy. I believe in you. Computer's freezing. Awesome. There we go. Okay. So those are really basic. I could add additional features very easily, and I did on some other ones. Obviously, you can put some fillets on all this stuff. I don't know why it's lagging so bad right now. I do 2. That's fine. Do a small fillet. Type in 1. Wow, I'm getting some really bad lag here. Or I guess that's not lag. That's just actual computing. Oh, 1 is way too big. So maybe more like 0.2. Yeah, just a tiny little thing. So you can add little features in like that very easily. But anyhow, this will, for the most part, work. I definitely want to add in. Let me resize here once my computer catches up. So I would definitely want to make sure that I add in the buttons for the other side. If you're going to have like a charging port, draw that in. But that's how you can draw more easily on top of surfaces to create additional features. Okay, so Neato Burrito. We got a phone case that I'm working with, because again, if I just had a bare phone, you could model that, or you could duplicate or work from a model like this. I do expect you to model the object you're actually using. But since mine is in a case, I modeled the case and I can just hide the phone inside. Okay. So from here is really where you start deciding, what do you want to do? So let's go ahead and rotate everything. I'm gonna do a basic model off of something that is more of like a phone stand design. So I'm gonna go ahead and select both of the phone case and the phone here. Oh, I just realized I forgot the rule number 1. It is still unsaved. Save your work. We're in the phone stand. Example, phone stand. Now it more effectively actually save what I'm doing. Okay, so I want to select both of these. So I'm going to do a click and drag select box. I'm going to select from the right and go left, just so I'm making sure to get everything. It's fine. And I want to move this, but I want to rotate it. So I'm going to just go to a right view. Why is it selecting from there? Let's see here. I want to select components because I want both of those. Great. I don't know why. Nope, no, not that. Damn it. Components. I want both of those components. Super duper. I'll double check something. That is looking real weird. Not sure why it's selecting random things there. So let me cancel out the selection feature here. And I'm going to select by choosing the actual parts on my hierarchy tree. So I'm going to select phone case, holding down Shift, also select the main. So that should get me both. Tell you what then, since it doesn't seem to be wanting to do that, we'll do it this way. I will select the phone case by opening up the hierarchy tree and selecting the body, and then also phone case, or the phone itself. Okay, there we go. And now, since I selected it that way, it snapped to, well, not the origin point. That's really strange. I'll deal with that later. Okay. I'm just going to rotate it and just see. Realistically, all right, 75 degrees. That seems good. It would, if I set the phone down into something, that would be a good angle to hold it at. Seems reasonable-ish. Okay. And then it's more or less right there. Okay, that seems good. That'll work for me for now. I might also go ahead and move that. Yeah, see, it keeps giving me very strange selection features. I do want to just bring that over a bit more so that I'm more closer to the origin point. And that's just because I like working from the origin point. That's all. Okay. So I got my phone. It's at a seemingly reasonable angle. Neato. All right. Now I'll just kind of knock out some sort of case, beginnings of. So I want to start a new component. So the top main component, the whole project is active. Go up to new component. And we'll just say stand. Okay. So obviously from here, once you get a basic model going of your object, what do you want to do? So I'm going to just make kind of like a basic tabletop style, like a nightstand or desktop or something like that. So I'm going to start with a sketch. I don't know why I did that. There we go. I'm going to work on the main construction plane. And I'm just going to, let's see here, maybe kind of freehand something here. Oops. Selected the wrong plane. There we are. Start there. And since I kind of want this to be more of like a desk thing, I don't know. 200 long? That might be too long. I can always adjust it once I play with it a little bit. And then we'll say I'll tab over for the other section there. And I don't know, 60 seems about good. Can all, oh God. There we go. Can always orbit around and just kind of see, yeah, that seems somewhat reasonable. However, and I'm not sure why it's defaulting this way right now. I would like to move that forward just a little bit. That seems good. Okay. All right. So sort of kind of a basic thing going. I can play with this more later, but for now, I'm just going to get a basic frame going. Select that, extrude upwards. 30 is not large at all. Let's say more of, if I want this to be somewhat deep, we'll do more like 60. 60 seems rather excessive. Let's do 50. Okay. There we go. So now I got the base. Now I got a basic thing going. Now, right now, and let me just hide this phone itself so I'm just seeing the case. Whoa, what happened there? Ah, no wonder that seemed odd. It selected it selected the relative plane off of the phone, not off of the construction plane. All right, well, that's mildly irritating. Double check what you're doing. All right, well, I'll go back, edit the sketch. No wonder that seemed strange. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if I can adjust this. Well, I should be able to pivot it. You know what? It wasn't that complex. I'll just delete the thing, start over. Yep. That's okay. Delete it. All right. Oh, it deleted the whole thing, even the component. Great. Okay, let's try this dance again. All right. Start a sketch. I want to make sure that I'm not grabbing that phone, but rather the base. There we go. That makes actual sense now. And we'll just throw up a rectangle. What did I say? 60 by 200? Sure. And then move this around a little bit. Sure. Okay. Now we have something that's slightly less unsettling. Hit extrude, and I'm going to bring that up to 50 like I did before. Okay, now we got something I'm working with. Okay. So one of the things you're going to want to do is obviously have a hole for this phone. Now, I'm not sure about the placement just yet, so I'll hold off on that. But let's say, well, for one, I don't know, kind of don't like it being square like that. I'm going to go back into the feature of the extrusion, and I'm going to add a taper. 5 degrees. Oop, -5, I mean. Sure, it's mild, or it's very subtle, but it's a feature. Now, say I wanted to add some holes to put like pens or something. Great. I can start a sketch just like I did for the buttons on the phone case. I can select the top of my component here, and I can start adding some sketches on top of that. Now you see when I selected that plane, it recreated the grid relative to the top of that box. That's how that works. So I'm going to just make a couple of holes that seem about right. 25, sure. And then maybe a couple more over here. I don't know, 10. Neat. Do the same. Somewhere there-ish. 10. Okay. Could always add more later. Or I can rearrange these. Okay. Finish the sketch. Hit extrude. And I want to select all of these. And I want these holes to go downward. Now, I could either enter it numerically. When I click and drag internally, my operation automatically goes to cut. But how deep do I really want these? Or what if I'm unsure that I might want to change the dimensions of this phone stand? Well, what we've been doing is adding like definitive dimensions so far, or I've been just clicking and dragging. You can also select just above the distance selector is extent type. If I hit that, instead of just distance, I can select to object. And what that object can be is I can orbit under and click the bottom side of my phone stand. Now, that's going to pull those all the way through. But then when I selected extent type and all that, a new option came up, offset. I can offset that distance from the endpoint a little bit. So I'm going to say 3 millimeters. All right. I want negative because I want it to be inside. Great. Now, let me go to the front. Now these holes that are extrusions from the circles that I drew, they go all the way to the bottom, but then they're offset or they stop backwards 3 millimeters from the bottom. And automatically cut. Great. All of that. The cool thing about that feature is if I go back in my history slider to the previous one, to the previous extrusion, and adjust the height of this stand, those holes will always stay. They'll go all the way to the top, but they'll always be 3 millimeters from the bottom. So no matter how tall I make this stand, it will keep that floor thickness. And that's just a really excellent thing to be able to do, to be able to keep. Now let me change. I'll just drag this upwards, 56. Okay, great. Recalculates. And those holes inside still stay 3 millimeters from the bottom. It's just really handy to be able to do stuff like that as you're just kind of freehand modeling things. So I can just play at this a little bit. Great. So there's some features. Oh, pardon. I can cut a hole into this, or I said one of the other tools is the combine tool. Now, this is basically just what we've been doing. The extrusion has a built-in combine tool. If I went into join, cut, whatever. But how do I make a hole for this phone now? Well, I could extrude, but extrusions only go in the major vertices. So that kind of screws everything up there. What I could also do is make a thing that I can delete from inside of this positive block and make a negative space for that. And I'll show you what I mean by that now. All right, so this phone case was, let me go back to the phone case, reactivate. And what was the dimensions of that? Just go in here so I can see what I'm doing. It was 80 wide, and then, okay, finish. And then it was like 12 deep. So I need something that's a little bit bigger than 80, let's say 85, and let's say 15 millimeters deep. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a separate object, move it in place, and use that object to delete a space out of my phone stand. And I know we're running a little bit late, or we're getting a little bit late here, so this is why this is going to be a longer project. So let me just throw down a sketch. I will start on the, let's see, the problem is once you start building on top of this, it's hard to find the origin plane again. All right, so I'm working on the origin plane. I want we'll just use a center point, and I'm just going to draw this somewhere out in space. It does not matter. So I said the case itself is about 12 by 80. So give myself a little wiggle room. Let's say 15 millimeters by 85. You know what? If I'm doing 5 on both, I should probably do 17. We'll just make it an even number of 20. That's fine. Okay. And I don't want that to be square, so I'll put a quick fillet on these. I don't know. We'll say 2.5. Sure. I'm just rounding this out a little bit. Repeat fillet. I should do the linked fillets on all these, but that's okay. Okay. So I just did 2.5 for radius. I'm just kind of guessing. And now I'm going to extrude this. Let's see. What did I end up making this thing? Like 60, 65, something like that. Sure. We'll just make it tall enough. Make sure we'll do 80. Or tell you what, we'll just make it the whole size. The phone case itself was like 120. That's fine. Won't matter in a moment anyway. All right. And next is going to be, I need to rotate this to match that phone. And that was like 75 degrees, I believe. So I'm going to select, no, I just want that thing. Body. There we go. Select move. And I want to angle that. No, because I brought it upwards. All right. 75. Let me try something here. So very much not. All right. So 90 straight up and down to get to 75. Negative 25. Nope, not 2.5. 25. There we go. Wait, my math is off, isn't it? Yeah. 90 minus 70, or 9 minus 25 is not 75. Little bit too much there, genius. 15. There we are. That makes a little more sense. Okay. So I could have done this in the same operation, but I wanted to keep them separate just as an example. So now I'm going to move this body again, but I'm going to place it now where I want that phone to be. So I'm just going to drop that where it intersects this phone case, the stand here. And I'm just going to slide it over. Again, this doesn't have to be permanent. Okay. Now, right now, they're just intersecting. They're not actually linked or anything like that. So now I'm going to use the combine tool. So this is the same thing that's been being used by default when I extrude into the body here. But instead of join, I want to cut. So the target body refers to what you want to remove material from, or the first selection. So that'll be that one. The tool body is the plug. And let me, just so I don't accidentally hide or accidentally delete my phone case itself, I want this one. Now it's going to preview that for you. You also have a couple of other options. Say you had a really complex model and because it's by default, it's going to delete this model this plug that I made. You could keep the tool and it'll just stay as a separate thing again. You could also select new component. So if you wanted to leave all of these parts as pieces that you could manipulate and keep playing with, and then have it generate a brand new component, you could do that too. So I'll click OK to both of those. I want it to make a new component because I might want to go back and change this some more. And I want to keep the tool because I want that stand in. Click OK. Now you get this, you can kind of barely see this weird swirling. That's because you have two objects taking up the exact same virtual space, but it did make a new component down here. So I'll activate that and let me hide the phone stand. And now you see it has made a removed section where those two bodies intersected. And I can just rename this to, where's rename? I don't see it. Whatever. Just do the slow click. New phone stand. Okay. So there we are. Now the problem is, if I look down on my history slider, there's no history for this. But that means that if I wanted to make alterations to this, I go back to the old component, activate that, hidey. Now I can play around with it. Pardon me. But you see now, that is still a thing, and they're just intersecting. So that's how you can delete areas out. So if anything, I'm just going to go ahead and label these stand, phone, I don't know, plug, sure. So that's how you could also go in and say, add in a space inside for, like, if you wanted a charging port built into that, something like this. Now, obviously, this is not a good design. This is really basic. This hole probably would only hold like one marker and like one pencil each or something, but play around with it. Come up with some designs. I just wanted to do a quick model here. I still have this example here. This took me a little bit longer because I modeled the phone case separately, and then we did the phone stand in class. So play around with the model, look at some examples, come up with some ideas. Remember, it doesn't have to be a phone stand. It could be something else, some other item that you're using, that sort. That's perfectly fine. So play around with some ideas. We're going to talk more about this next week, and we're going to, we'll go over some any questions anybody has, or do some troubleshooting, anything like that. But play around with it, get some ideas, maybe off of Thingiverse or so, and have fun. All righty.